your time with the struggle so that I maintain. Papa is the king that the world don't see. Don't forget where I came, trying to get her anyway. Stuck in this cycle, I'm stuck in a maze. Feeling like I'm losing although I am winning. Yeah. You never really got my pain too tired to explain. Yeah. Stuck in a cycle, stuck in a maze. Yeah.
Apologies if you can hear any drilling or any banging in the background. I'm currently having remediation works on my building. So it's something that I have to tolerate, you have to tolerate, we all have to tolerate. Welcome to Inclusive, the show where we speak to a variety of individuals that are influential within their field, whether that be locally, nationally, or on a wider scale. My name is Adam Gabzi and I will be your host. Today we are speaking to Svetlana Kotova. Svetlana is Director of Campaigns and Justice at Inclusion London. Over the last 12 years, she has worked in various advice and policy roles, enabling disabled people to fight for their rights at local and international level. Svetlana, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Hello, Adam.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. There are a few topics I would love to get your opinion on. But first, can we talk a little bit about you? Can you tell me about Svetlana's upbringing?
Yeah, of course. So I was, you could tell by my name, it's a Russian name. I was born in what was then called Soviet Union. And I was born in Moscow, and I grew up there with my family, and I witnessed in a way when obviously when I was a child all the change that happened to the country, and I witnessed how my family had to adapt to what was a completely radical change. My parents were quite politically active in many things, and then I also had a chance to go and live in America for a year and kind of compare things. I spent some time doing political activism in Russia, and then I moved to live in the UK. I kind of witnessed attitude changing when society, in a way you could say, kind of collapsed and had to rebuild itself. I was in my teenage years. We were fighting for greater freedoms at school, like literally. And we had to sometimes stand up to some unfair rules. And then when I grew up, when I went to university, I then joined a brilliant group of disabled people. We were first to bring kind of social model to that out to Russia and talk about social model with other people like us and kind of explain and discuss it. So that was really interesting. And as a way, I do have to say that at that time we were all kind of admiring the West in a way, because I think I see it more like a spring, like there is a balance, but obviously if something is pushed one way, it will go the other way. So at that time, everyone was admiring the West and everything that's going on in the West. And in terms of disabled people's rights, absolutely, like we were trying to find money to bring teachers, for example, here to show them how wonderful inclusive education is in Britain. When I came here, I was 100% sure that everything here is accessible. And I remember my huge disappointment when a couple of months later, after I moved to here, I originally lived in Cambridge. My friend from Russia, my friend who uses a wheelchair, came over, and we planned that we'll spend some time in London walking around. And oh my God, I realized how complicated and very, very inaccessible it was.
yeah.
So that was interesting, because obviously there is a perception in many other countries that things are brilliant here, and they're definitely not. And some countries do things better than here, I guess.
Do you want to tell us about your father?
My dad is a kind of he's a genius person. He's actually a genius mathematician. He went to special school, and then he went to university, to like the best university in Soviet Union at the time. They still remembered him, like because basically it's a bit of a small world, and my parents' friends work in that university. They still say that teachers who taught him remember him. He was quite exceptional. And but he couldn't, after he graduated, he did his PhD, he couldn't find a job, and like literally he was told, so initially trying to maybe see if he could teach, which I think he absolutely could have, because he's a brilliant teacher. He then like earned money tutoring other students to get, but he was basically told, how can you be teaching in this kind of state? And then he obviously worked for some kind of research place, but that wasn't good for him. When Soviet Union collapsed, everyone lost their job. My dad lost his job as well. And then he, together with some other Russian guys, they tried to develop first text-to-speech kind of program, like a screen reader in Russian, and that was going well. But obviously then the American software came, JAWS, which they couldn't compete with, because like it was a big corporation, and then that, yeah. So and then then my dad worked in different kind of software places, like the places that developed software. Then he worked teaching other blind people to use computers. Then he edited a magazine, and I think he still edits a magazine for blind children. So yeah, just to say, so I was born in a family. My dad is blind, and I also I'm partially sighted. Education system was all very segregated. I had to go to special nursery. My parents were actually fighting for me to go to nursery next door, which I don't understand why there would be a problem, because I was quite independent, and like it's not that I needed a lot of help compared to many other children, and I was always well behaved. I had to go to special school initially, but then later on again my parents were trying to get me to mainstream schools.
Svetlana, can we talk about DPOs, disabled people's organizations, and the movement as a whole? How would you describe the current state for disabled people?
Yeah, this is a very big and kind of heavy subject. First of all, I have to say, like, I actually always have admired disabled people's rights movement here in the UK. At the moment, things are getting harder. We need to remember that all the positive things that were achieved for disabled people were pushed and created and fought for by disabled people. So this is why we say that disabled people run and led organizations are really important, because we don't want other people speaking for us. We want allies. We want people to support campaigns for our rights, but we don't want others to decide what's best for us. What's going on with DPOs? Obviously, there was quite you would say like diverse and vibrant DPO sector maybe 15 years ago. I know this because I was involved in the first capacity building project about now 12 years ago. Oh, maybe more, 15. Oh my gosh, it just tells you how old I am and how time flies. Where I did mapping of DPOs that existed, and almost everywhere there was an organization of disabled people, like in different localities, and they were quite different, and they were quite big organizations as well. And I think what happened since is that they've been disappearing at scale, and even in London we know there are quite a few boroughs where there are no disabled people's organizations at all. This is, I think, due to many things, and we published a report about this at Inclusion London, but basically their resources have been cut, and it was difficult. And I think we need to recognize that it's not as easy for disabled people to organize as it could be for other social movements, just because you might need to resource, like find an accessible room. You might need, communication support. People might need help with support with travel, and people's own support was cut. And as someone told me, 15 years ago, disabled people were running their organizations. Now they're really scrambling to do basic day-to-day things in their home, because they lost the support that they had to do this. So because of cuts, obviously. Yep. So that's a really kind of, I guess, dire state of DPOs. I think there are some positive things happening as well. There are very passionate, committed individuals. We know that from the government's kind of really policies that were really hostile. For example, DPAC was Disabled People Against Cuts was created, which is less structured, much more fluid kind of movement. And that was, that also achieved phenomenal things. If kind of you think about it, including, for example, UN calling out grave and systematic violations of disabled people's rights. So there are good things, and disabled people now organize and via social media and so on, but there still needs to be some kind of infrastructure for that to happen. So that's why we've been, and there needs to be also active listening and working with disabled people's led organizations, because obviously it's kind of no-brainer. We disabled people know what's best for us. But secondly, most of DPOs don't have this vested interest. They're not service providers. They don't speak on behalf of their clients as someone who provides services. They are people who, want to make their lives better and lives for other people in a similar situation better. And that is very different.
That's why we say nothing about us without us.
Yeah, exactly. Which, if you see, has been taken by many other movements, but I think it's specifically kind of prevalent for disabled people's movement, because it's just somehow accepted that others could speak on our behalf. And I think I use this metaphor, sometimes you come to buy a cinema ticket, or you go to a restaurant, and if you if there's one person non-disabled, another person is obviously disabled, they would usually ask non-disabled person, so what does this person want for? And I know it's changing now, but it's exactly that. That's what the government and everyone else who is not consulting with us directly, that's what they're doing. And yeah.
And you and a group of disabled people have released the Disabled People's Manifesto. Do you want to tell the viewer about that?
Yes, sure. So it's a manifesto that was released by disabled people's organizations in England, but obviously my organization, Inclusion London, played a very active role in putting this manifesto together. What we are saying is this is call for any government, any future government, to take disabled people's rights seriously. We are saying that we need a fundamental change, like shift. We don't want patching here and there and propping up failing system. We want the government, a new government. I mean, this government could do it too, but doesn't look like they will or they're going to. We want them to sit down first and fundamentally think about like policies, and create a strategy together with disabled people. So there is a clear vision and there is clear kind of indicators for what makes a good policy, inclusive policy for disabled people, and commit to kind of specific things. We're talking about rights. So we definitely want, for example, United Nations Convention on the Rights of Disabled People to be part of the law here, which it's not a document that asks for, impossible things. It's a document that really explains what should happen for disabled people to enjoy the rights that, many non-disabled people have already. So we want obviously this, and we want the legal system to work. We, for example, want measures to make sure Equality Act, the law that we have here, to be fully implemented, because now it's not working as well. Then we want independence. So we're not talking about like independence is not doing everything for yourself. It's about being able to make choices and have control and have enough support to do and achieve and enjoy same things that non-disabled people do. So we're talking about right to independent living, which means that disabled people would be able to choose where they live, which doesn't happen at the moment, would be able to be part of their community and would be able to get support so they can, just do and, as I say, enjoy everyday things and just live a normal life. We are then also calling for inclusion, which means that disabled people should be part of, all policies. We are calling for example, resources to be diverted from systems that segregate disabled people. So, for example, create these awful institutions where, we not often, but once in a while see new panorama or new other investigation program that exposes this abuse that happens in different institutions. So we want diversion of resources from those to support in the community, to right support. And it could be about kind of social care, it could be about schools, it could be about health. And obviously we're calling for, transformative policies, inclusive policies in housing, because we need, as a society, we know people are living longer. Many people will become disabled at some point in their life, and we need accessible housing from the start. We don't need money shifting from here to there and again propping up. So now, for example, you can buy a new home and then local authority would still have to spend thousands to make it accessible for you. It's just unbelievable that this is happening. It shouldn't be. So we're calling for these things in our manifesto.
And one thing that you didn't mention, which I think is extremely important and that we are highlighting right now, is representation.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, we're also calling for representation, which means co-production, which means supporting disabled people-led organizations. Yeah. And means that we need to see more disabled people in political, in political roles, and as MPs, as councillors, as civil servants who design policies, as judges and
with 20% of the population of the UK being disabled people, representation is extremely possible.
Yes, 100%. And I think, first of all, like we see that not always politicians appreciate how many disabled people there are and how important it might be for all political parties to think more about what they can do, how they can positively change lives for disabled people. That could bring them votes. But secondly, there needs to be deliberate action to help support more and encourage more disabled people to, stand for elections and be involved in politics. And there are some initiatives that happen now, but we need much more of those. And for example, like we know government used to have this access to elections fund. They closed it. And now they want to do a review of whether to open it or not. Just open it. And because that thing, what they did, it helped to pay for access costs. So any disabled candidates who needs information, for example, in different formats, who communicates in a different way, they need to find and fund money to fund that kind of support. That's what that fund did. So closing it was a big mistake.
And where can we find the Disabled People's Manifesto?
You can find it on the website. We have a website. It has manifesto in accessible formats. It's disabledpeoplemanifesto.com. So please visit this website, read it, and there are different ways people can support it. You can put your name to sign, to show your support, or sign our petition.
And if you're viewing this on YouTube, you can go down to the description and I'll put in the description. Svetlana, the cost of living crisis is affecting everybody, but particularly disabled people. Do you want to highlight some of the things that it's having an effect on?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's so I'm not going to throw like different stats. There's plenty of evidence that cost of living crisis has a disproportionately high impact on disabled people. And that's because a few things. First of all the existing support and disability benefits do not cover full extent of extra costs that people have. Secondly, kind of prices went up, and generally there's a big question about the adequacy of support people who claim benefits have. But then there are, again, disabled people are disproportionately overrepresented in low wage, insecure work. So, even if you work, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're protected from the cost of living crisis. Then that's something that Inclusion London has been campaigning a lot on. Those disabled people, for example, whose income only comes from benefits, who are not able to work, but those who need social care, and to need social care support, you need to have quite high support needs. They then have to give up huge parts. I calculated that something around 40% of their benefits to pay for that social care. So just like if non-disabled people, it's a very bad metaphor, but just imagine non-disabled person would have to give up 40% of their wage or benefits income or whatever just to, make a meal, to go toilet, or get off out
disability
of bed.
Tax, essentially, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we call it. It's a tax on disability, or disability charge or something. It's you have to basically pay out of benefits that government gives you to support because they recognize you have extra costs.
Yeah.
And that's hitting people hard, because people basically get left with so little money, and then with energy prices, and we still haven't, although we saw some interest in creating a scheme to support disabled people who need who have higher energy costs. We didn't see any action, but that will be the same this winter. And food, inflation is obviously hitting people with lowest incomes, because the increase in price for kind of basic stuff is much higher than 10%. So that's those are big problems. But generally, I think also what I see a lot, because we're trying to put a puzzle together, kind of to see different where the problems come from. Another big problem that many people face is that to get little bits of support here and there, you have to, fill in hundreds of forms, ask and argue for little bits. Why government gives with one hand, takes away with another? There isn't, you have to prove and repeat same information everywhere. But that's time, right? When you need this time to literally maybe find something like a cheaper product somewhere, or, negotiate a better deal with your or find a cheaper energy provider, you don't have this time because you spend it on, filling in constant forms. And I think also we're going to publish this research on charging, but I think it's really applicable to all other places. It really demeans people. Well, it's actually money that government recognizes disabled people need to get, right? Or, but you kind of are made to feel like you're begging and going and asking public bodies that are, they exist because of tax that we all pay, and they should be serving it. But you are begging them to give you little bits of money so you can survive. It's a very, very, very powerless and kind of demeaning position to be in, and that I think is also a huge problem.
I think what they underappreciate is the anxiety that they cause when you receive a brown envelope as a disabled person. Just the colour of the envelope is enough, to get your heart racing and to make you panic. And
yeah, no, totally. It's actually quite ironic because if you look at kind of DWP's documents, one of their goals is to increase trust in DWP amongst the claimants. And so they do this on one hand, and then they publish videos of the minister basically saying that they will go, if you're cheating, we will find you and we will prosecute you. And I think, I don't say that benefits, if someone is really claiming benefits they shouldn't have, they should of course be found and whatever, but this is a tiny proportion of people, and we know that that's just exaggerated as a problem to such a high level. You can't make policy based on some people who don't genuinely follow the rules. If for example, I don't know, I was saying this is a bad example. If parents beat their children, there are some parents who beat their children. We don't remove children from all parents to protect them. It's just, I think basically exaggerating problem of benefits cheat is a politically motivated campaign to kind of stir up hatred and also to persuade general public that further cuts that they're planning to welfare support is justified. I think that's where it's coming from.
What's your opinion on the current changes that are being proposed with regard to the work capability assessment?
Work capability assessment is a process which everyone who claims means-tested benefits and whose health is, not good enough for them to be able to work, they have to go through the process where there's certain criteria, and at the moment healthcare professionals assess how they meet these criteria. There's been scandals about this anyway, and the government did say that they will scrap this, not with good intentions, but anyway, let's just put this aside. But because they want changes now, and they are saying that too many people who are older than 50, so older working age population are leaving workplace because of ill health. They want to change the criteria for this work capability assessment so that effectively fewer people qualify and fewer people get into a group, a position where they don't have to be forced to be looking for work. So they want more people subjected to some kind of involvement with Job Center Plus. And I think, to me, this is just all such a strange way to go about it. Like, why do people over 50 leave the workplace? I'd say workplace is not inclusive enough, and then government should really look at what have they done. I mean, they have done some things, for example, right to flexible working, but is it real right, and is it really working? Secondly, is there enough support? Is it coming very fast? When someone's health deteriorates, they might need more support. We know Access to Work has like months of delays. So Access to Work, a program that supports people, disabled people in work. Then people might be waiting for NHS appointments and they can't get the treatment for their condition. So like if you're in constant pain, it can't be treated. How can you work? And no matter how much Job Center Plus will tell you to go and look for work, it just won't be possible. And I think also they're trying to have a go at kind of obviously people with experience of mental distress. And again, I think it's just, it's cruel, but also it's just a really bad policy. And their justification is that more work is now done remotely, for people work from home. But I looked at this, and basically if you look at the stats, people who work from home are like top managers, like highly educated, high earners, or people with in certain industries where like, okay, they might be a few disabled people in there, like me included, for example. But it's not necessarily the majority. I mean, it's not it's 100% not the majority of people who will be claiming work, ESA or universal credit. So
I've also looked at the statistics, and it's only 11% of all jobs that offer remote working anyway. So they're expecting disabled people to work from home when they can't.
It's all to save money, and obviously now they're trying to, because I think there's lots of misconceptions about how much people who get benefits, how much they actually receive, and what they have to go through. I think somehow there is this opinion that people get a lot, and people are barely surviving on sometimes we spend more in a coffee shop buying coffee and sandwich than people have for a whole day to live on for everything. So I think, so that, and they don't want people to know this. They want people to know about cheats and just generally to kind of this very simple messages like you need to work but work doesn't pay. We know, like, people are in very disabled people, as I said, are disproportionately in low income, insecure jobs, like, for example, jobs with in care industry and so on. How can they make work pay? You work all day for very, very little money, and you still struggle because, you have to, the cost of rent, with things that are happening, like, for example, in London, with just cost of living, you won't be able to make your ends meet, and government wants to cut even more from welfare. So that's a depressing situation. I think it's what I said about work capability assessment, and in a way attack on disabled people, on people who genuinely do rely on social security to support their income. I think it's really important that we don't just accept this. We need to, and it's hard, and I know we've been doing it for years, but still it's important to resist this. It's important to join with organizations who are trying to challenge this, to protest out. There are different ways. There are ways to talk to your MP, or even just counselors, to your friends. There are obviously at another level demonstrations and other kinds of direct action, but there's stuff in the middle, and everyone can raise awareness. Even if you talk to 3 people who didn't know much about this situation and you explain to them, that would make a huge difference, because there are many of us, and if we all did this, we would be able to change public opinion.
Svetlana, there are so many subjects we could talk about. I'm going to have you back. And hopefully when you do come back, there is less remediation works going on and there is less drilling. We've touched on a lot of serious topics, and this is one that I think is very nice to ask people. Can you name one thing that you're grateful for and why?
I think I'm grateful, genuinely in my life, that I was able to turn my activism, my passion, into job, and I met incredible people through my kind of activism journey, and I'm sure I'll meet many more incredible people, and I can feel the energy of us all working together. And yes, it's difficult. We're not going to achieve change tomorrow, but we do see a brighter future. And I think that is worth kind of fighting for and living for.
Svetlana Kotova, thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam.
To time with the struggle so that I maintain. Papa is the king that the world don't see. Don't forget where I came, trying to get out anyway. Stuck in this cycle, I'm stuck in a maze. Feeling like I'm losing although I am winning. Yeah.